Good morning, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started this morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tim Newhouse. I'm the payroll director here at Resourcing Edge. I'd like to welcome you to the September edition of our Resourcing Edge monthly webinar series. So we want you to know we're listening to your feedback, and overwhelmingly you told us that you wanted some training on reporting. How can I get more information from reporting? Where do I go? Can I create my own reports, and so on? So today is going to focus on Report Center. It's going to be mastering basics and understanding new features within re360 Report Center. It's a newer tool with some current enhancements that can be used to create and gather information on your employees using the data in re360. So before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Your lines are going to remain muted. However, feel free to ask any questions you have throughout the webinar by typing them in the questions section of your screen. We will pause and answer questions as we move through the presentation. This webinar is going to be recorded and available on your manager self-service portal soon after the webinar. You will also be able to obtain a link to the recording from your client account manager. And last but not least, there will be a survey at the end of this webinar, and we would appreciate if everyone would participate in that. It will ask, how did we do on the presentation today, as well as what other training that you would like to receive. With that, my colleague Jama Duchesne is going to lead you through how to get to Report Center, pull a canned report and manipulate it, build a report from scratch, and so much more. So Jama is our lead corporate systems trainer. She is our resident expert, and we rely heavily on Jama for support and training on many of our systems within Resourcing Edge. With that said, Jama, welcome, and thank you for being here with us this morning, and I am going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate it. Okay, so first and foremost, we are just going to go over what exactly we're going to be talking about in regards to learning objectives. So the first thing we will show you is how do you even get access and how do you open up the Report Center. Some of you may already know this, some of you may not, but we want to make sure we address that first and foremost. Then we're going to go into basic navigation of the Report Center. We'll show you how to group data, some examples of that. We're also going to go over how to aggregate data, what that means, and when you would want to use an aggregate. Also, how to create a pivot table, how to create a view or a different version of your report. And then last, we are going to do a practice where I'm going to put Tim on the spot and have him share his screen, and I'll kind of walk him through step by step so that if you want to join us, if you have another monitor, you can also kind of walk through a step-by-step practice of building a report. So with that said, before we jump into the first learning objective, I do want to launch a quick poll to get some information from you all, just two things. The first one is going to be, how often do you create or view reports? And I would be curious to know if you are constantly using reports or viewing reports, often, seldom, never, just so that I can kind of gauge how helpful this might be to most of you. It looks like most of everyone is either often or seldom or constantly. That's good. Kind of fluctuating, but the majority answer is often. Okay, good to know. Thank you. And the second one I am curious about is, let me actually close that. Have you ever used the Report Center inside of re360? Just kind of curious if anybody has not had that opportunity to use it. Right now it looks like around 80% says yes, 20% says no. So that's good that those of you who are on who have not used it, really glad that you are joining. Okay, good information. Thank you so much. I'm going to close the poll now. All right. So let's get into our first objective and how to access and how to open it. So if you don't have access currently to the report center, please reach out to your account manager, either by phone call, email, in person, and just ask them for access, and they will ensure that it is set up for you. And then in regards to opening the report center, your first option is to go to the search bar inside of re360 and type the words report space center. And then you'll have that application suggestion if you have access to the report center. That's going to open up a new window and then give you that access. Otherwise, you can click on My Home. If you don't have My Home, you can type that into the search bar if it's not on your favorites already. And then that's going to transform your dashboard to look a little differently. And then you can click on the report center that way. So 2 different ways to open the report center, either the search bar or the My Home dashboard. All right, so let's go into our report center and just show you some basic navigation. I actually do not have a slide for this because I am going to pull open my report center and show you in real time what this looks like. So when you open the report center, it will open in a new browser so you can quickly jump back into re360. You are going to have this home screen with a list of all the reports that you have access to, whatever your security has been set up to see. So if you have access to payroll information, then you'll have access to the payroll reports, etc. And if you're looking for a particular report, keep in mind this search bar here. This is where you can easily and quickly find what you're looking for just by typing in a keyword, such as the word benefit. If you type in the word benefit, it's going to pull open all of the reports related to benefits. It's going to search the report name as well as the report description. You could also type in payroll, and I have several different reports that have payroll in them. Also, maybe employee. So we will be able to find our reports really easily just by typing in that keyword of what we're looking for. We also have the option to make a report our favorite just by single clicking on the right side of the report bar and clicking add to favorites just by single clicking the star. And then if you want to just show all your favorites, you go up to the top area and just click on show all of your favorite reports. And that's just going to easily group those up to the top so that you can access those favorite reports that you're constantly opening up and modifying. This is also a really nice feature here, this columns. So if you're trying to find a report that has a specific field or column of information, you can just start typing in. Maybe you want to ensure that you can find a name on here that you're looking for. If I select maybe the employee last name here, when I select that field or column, it's going to show all the reports that have either that field or the field is available to add to the report. So it's just a really nice way to ensure that you are getting what you need on your report. Secondly, the client global selector up in the top right, if you have more than one FEIN or EIN, you can select that in the drop-down list and you can have multiple companies inside of your report information, which could be very nice if you do have multiple FEINs. And then this question mark in the top right portion of the screen is an admin guide. That's going to open up into a separate browser so you can easily go back into the report center. But this is really nice because, again, you can search by a keyword. So maybe I just want to search by the word pivot and I want more information on pivot tables. That's going to give me all of the articles and information on how to work with my keyword pivot. And then I also have an I for information bubble in the bottom right corner of the screen. If I click on this, I have a couple different options here. I have an area that you can directly provide feedback to the developers of this software. which is extremely nice because you have input into making this product be exactly what you need it to be. So if you are in the report center and you have exhausted all your efforts in trying to find something or design something that you just can't get to work and we've already assisted you and it's just not in here, please type that feedback in this comments box and click submit feedback, and that will go directly to the developers of this software. And they typically, depending on what your request is, they will update the software in the next quarter or two with the software release. So a really nice way to communicate. And then you also have a help center. This is in addition to the admin guide that I showed you. So this area has been really well designed, because if you want just some quick learning at the tip of your fingertips, you've got this area where you can see the latest quarterly release updates. You've got a full overview video training on the report center itself, 26 minutes long, or they even have that broken out into snippets. So this is not even like a minute long. If you want just a quick video on how to create a group, it's 2 minutes long. This is just a really nice area to get that quick training. And then of course you have a tour that you can launch where it's just clickable and it'll talk about different areas within the system. One other item I want to mention in regards to navigation, as you scroll through your report list, you're going to notice that you have different colors and different icons. So the blue grid icon is your most common report. It's going to look very similar to like an Excel spreadsheet. You have a green icon though with a bar graph. This is going to allow you to have your data displayed in a more visual manner in regards to bar graphs and scatter charts. And then you also have an area with within the software that's going to allow you, let me clear this out. I already have my filter in here, clear all. And then I have some pre-designed reporting essentially that's going to just show you a template of a pivot view. And then I also have an orange icon that will be a map, essentially, displayed of all your worksite locations. So it can be nice in regards to visual representation within reporting. So I would suggest playing around with all of that in regards to seeing what you need for reporting. And then if we go into, give me 1 second, I'm like getting some feedback here. Okay, if I go into a report here, maybe my employee census, one other area of navigation is the toolbar. And so once my report opens here, I've got this toolbar here in the top right portion of my screen. And this is where I can add different columns, different groups, aggregates, pivots, save different versions, export my report. And then you can also move columns around, and we'll kind of show you that in just a bit. So that is your basic navigation. Let me go back into my slides here. Now, this is a huge thing and very important to learn in regards to the report center, is how to group your data. So once you have opened up a report, I have this employee benefits eligibility report open, for example. Once you have this opened up, you can create groups out of any column of data to group rows together based on the value of a specific column. And for example, you can create groups of employees who are eligible for benefits by benefit plan. Groups are your first implied sorting of the report. So once you create a group, it's shown in the group bar for the report so that you can visually see what is in fact grouped within the report. So whenever you add any group from a currency field, the report will display totals and subtotals. And in this example, I've chosen to group the data in this report by the employee state. And since there is a currency column for the payroll amount, that column of data will show totals and subtotals. let's talk about how you can actually add a group now. So to add a group, you can do this from the toolbar. You navigate to the toolbar in the top right portion of the screen, click on the group icon, and then search for the field that you want to group your data by, just by checking the box. And you can see that now we have a group from what we selected in the group icon in the toolbar. You can also quickly reorder your groups just by simply dragging and dropping the group side by side within the toolbar. So whatever is to the furthest on the left side of the group bar is what your data is going to be grouped by first. But if you want to rearrange that, just simply single click the group, the gray group icon, and then just drag and drop. And you can also expand groups by clicking on the arrow of the group to view the detailed data within that group. And to quickly expand all your group data, simply click on the arrow on the column header of the group, and then you can just click on expand all groups or collapse all the groups. So that's just an easy way to see all that detailed information if you want to see what's inside of the group. Now let's take a look at some examples of grouping your data when you would maybe want to group your data. So this example here is going to show you that I've grouped in my report called Pay Code Detail. I am grouping my pay code, and I have a column that has a currency. So now I'm going to be able to see my totals for each group, each pay code, and also a full total at the bottom of the report. I can also group by location. Maybe you want to see pay amounts by location. You can certainly do that. And then in this example, I've got my benefit plans for my report called Employee Benefits Detail. And I'm grouping the plans so that I can see my totals for my employees, their dependents, the employee contribution, as well as the client contribution. I am going to pause here and I'm going to see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, we did have one question, and it was on My Home. I do not have Report Center, and if you can't find that from My Home, or if it's not searchable at the top, as Jameis showed earlier, where you type in Report Center, then you currently don't have access. Just contact your client account manager, and they will be happy to get that access for you.
Thank you, Tim. All right, we're going to move on to how to aggregate data. So using aggregates, you can combine data in various ways. For example, a report can contain aggregate values such as averages, counts, distinct counts, maximum minimums, and totals for any numeric or currency value. And keep in mind, you can create aggregates only for columns that are currently visible on the report. So if you're trying to get an average or a total, just go back into your report and make sure it is actually on the report in terms of a column. And I'll show you what that means. So to aggregate the data from your toolbar, you're just going to click on the aggregate icon once you have a report open. You're going to search your current columns that you have on the report, and I'm going to choose my amount. And you can do multiple ways to aggregate that information. I'm going to select average as well as total. And then when I click on done, I'll be able to see that. If I actually scroll over to the right of the report, I'll be able to see those averages and totals. And it'll also display when I export the report into CSV, Excel, PDF, etc. You can also aggregate your data directly from a column just by going to that column, clicking on the downward arrow, selecting aggregates, and then you can do, depending on the type of column it is, you can either do a count, distinct count, or you can add other different aggregates. And this this is kind of an example of when you might want to utilize an aggregate if you want to get a distinct count for an employee name to see how many records there are per employee. You can also do maximum, minimums, totals of pay amounts. That's a really nice way to utilize the aggregate feature. So let's go ahead and talk about creating a pivot table. Unlike a static report, a pivot table provides an interactive view of your data that lets you look at the same data from many different perspectives. So you can group data into categories. You can break down data into years and months and filter data to include or exclude categories of information. You can also transform rows into columns and columns into rows. This is probably the most common reason why someone would use a pivot table, is to transform the rows and the columns, just to swap those. And then also the reason why you might want to use a pivot table, it's so much easier to just kind of start from scratch. You don't have to write a formula. It's not complex. It's really easy to kind of just design what you need. And I'll get into that now. So in order to open up the pivot view of any report, you literally just click on pivot view in the toolbar near the top right. Your report is going to transform. You can always go back into the grid view by clicking on grid view. So you're literally just kind of changing the way that the report looks, but you can go back and forth however many times you need to. It's just literally clicking pivot view inside of any report. That's how you start that. And once you get into pivot mode, you have different options. And it's basically like starting from scratch, where you can select different rows and columns and values of information. It's really just customizing your own information and the way that you want it laid out inside of a report. And then let's turn our attention to the pivot settings. This gear or wheel icon in the top or kind of side right, you have a new window that's going to open up when you click on that. And you have several different options to choose from. And this is going to really be an area where if you feel comfortable with the pivot table, this is where you can really customize the way it looks, the way it feels, add colors. It's just a great feature. And in regards to the different layout options, these layouts are helpful to utilize when you have more than one group of data. If you have more than one group and you choose the tree layout, it's going to display data collapsed underneath the first group created. And if you have more than one group and you choose the tabular view, the additional group selections will be displayed visibly in their own columns. And choosing the tabular with subtotals will add an additional row of subtotaled information for each group. So you can kind of just click around with the layouts, try what looks best and what makes sense for you and for what you're needing to display within the report. There's also, before we get into views, I want to show you inside of my pay code detail. Of course, it's going to log me out. Give me 1 second. I'm going to log back in. I'll show you again kind of how to open that up, if it will open up for me. Here we go. So I'm going to go into my report center. And it doesn't like me right now. Let me go into it this way. All right, here we go. So I'm going to show you a really cool way to customize the way that your data looks inside of a pivot table. So I'm going to open up my pay code detail report. I just typed in the words that I was looking for. I'm going to click on the report name to open that up. And then I already, because I last had a pivot view opened on my report, it's going to stay that way until I change it, or I can always go back to the report default. But it's very similar to if you're used to like Google Docs. If you are just typing, it will automatically save, or if you make a change, it automatically saves. You don't have to click save at all. Even though you do see this icon here, that's just to create a different view, which we're going to get into in just a minute. But you can see here, I have different colors of information here. And the way that I got that was, so I'll just show you from the start. From the grid view, I'm going to click on pivot view. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to load your data. So, okay, now I'm going to click on my pivot view. I'm going to click on my pivot settings, which is this gear icon on the far right side. And then I have chosen to have the total pay amount as a value. I just clicked on the plus sign, and you'll want to give it a minute because it has this report has lots of information inside of it. And then I literally just typed in the word total. And then you can keep typing, but since I already have it, it's not going to display, but I literally just selected what I wanted to value and then added that here. And then once you do that, your value field will be displayed here. You can have multiple values, but I'm going to single click on my value here. And you can change within the settings how you want that value to be aggregated. You can also change the column header if you want to rename it. You can change the formatting. So you can have a special style, percentage bytes. You can do decimal places if and when it makes sense. You can do an approximate value. And the really nice feature I think a lot of people don't really know about are the color ranges. So if you're wanting something to really stand out on your report, you can simply click on this little icon here. You can also add additional rows. I'll show you how it first looks. It's going to say select a color. If I click on this color here, maybe I want to do this color. I mean, you can see there's so many different colors here, but I'm going to choose this purple. And then I want maybe anything that is between 50 and 400. So anything that falls within these ranges are going to be colored with this color so that it just stands out and it's easy to identify. And when I hit apply, we're just going to give it a second, and now we can see that based upon how we define those ranges, we're going to easily spot what that amount is and where it's at. So nice little feature. Again, you can't really break it, so play around with it. Just click apply, have some patience with the data loading, and you'll really kind of get the custom report that you need. I'm going to pause to see if there's any questions.
Yeah, we did have one question come in a few minutes ago. Are there any differences for Mac users?
That's a great question. I don't think there's a difference, but you do need to, it's definitely recommended to use a Google Chrome browser. Otherwise, if you try to use like a Safari or Internet Explorer, the report center may not work correctly. So always try to use that Google Chrome browser. Good question. All right. Now we are going to go to the next learning objective, which is working with views. And views is somewhat of a new feature within the Report Center, and they are constantly updating the software. The reason, really kind of the main benefits of working with views or saving a new version of a report is that views really allow you to save frequently used versions of a report. So you can have different configurations that serve specific purposes. You can also quickly switch between variations of the same report. based on your current requirements. So it's going to save you time, essentially. Will be way more efficient with the software. And then they also allow you to save a view that filters a different set of data instead of the default. So let me show you what I mean by these different things. So you can change an existing view just by clicking on that monitor where it says your view, and you can go into all, like literally modify a view name. I first made this view by clicking on that Save Diskette icon in the toolbar in the top right, but I can make my own views, my own different versions of a report that is within a report. So I'm not cluttering up my home list of all of my reports essentially. And when you name a view, the best practice is to just really focus on what is the purpose of your report. You could say reconciliation or monthly summary. Also, just think about the characteristics, and you can open up the settings of the report, and it's going to show you whenever you try to save a different view, it's going to show you all the settings. So you'll want to name it on some of the main settings that are designed within the report. So let me show you what I mean by that exactly. So maybe I want to save a version of this pay code detail, and I want to remember that this version is focusing on different amounts by color. So I'm going to click on my Save Diskette icon and click on Save as View. And so I can see the settings that are designed within my report. And I'm just going to name it amounts by color variation. Really, you can name it whatever makes the most sense for you. I'm going to check make this your view and hit save. And then I can always go back to this view really quickly just by going into this monitor area, selecting it, and then I can see this is my new view. You can have unlimited views essentially, and only you can see your different views. It takes a specific role and specific security level to be able to share your views. But this is just mostly for you as an individual so that you don't have to keep recreating the wheel if you want to have different versions and just quickly switch back to those. And then always know that if you don't like what you just designed, don't try to backstep and change everything and waste your time. Always just go to this drop down with the monitor and click on Report Default. That is going to take you back to the original design of the report that the software made, like how they made this report originally. And right now, with my demo company, I don't have any data here, so I'm just going to clear my filter out so you can actually see what this report looks like. But that is honestly the easiest way to get back to the basics of what this report was designed to be. So just literally go to this drop down, click on Report Default, and you will go back to the original settings. So that is essentially the new feature of saving different views within the Report Center. We are now going to do some practice. And I am going to put Tim on the spot, and we are going to create, I'm going to have him share his screen, and I'm going to walk him through, and maybe I won't need to, he can just do it on his own. He knows how to do this by now. We're going to do monthly hours worked by location. We thought that this report might be relevant to you, so we want to walk through this step by step so that if you want to walk through it with us, you totally can. Would love to have you do that. And these are the steps that we are going to walk through. So I'm just going to read these out loud, and then I'm going to have Tim share his screen and go through this process. So we're first going to open up the report, pay code detail. Then we're going to click columns and clear everything out, start from scratch. We're going to choose our 3 columns that we want on the report, which are pay date, location, hours worked. Then I'm going to show you how to group one of the pieces of information called pay date by month. We're also going to then group it by location. We're going to get some practice in doing an aggregate. And then we will pull the summary only button over to the right so you can see the different views of our report that we have to us. I'll show you how to export it and how to save a different version. And I'm actually, so since I said these steps, Tim, I'm going to be testing you and then I'll come in whenever you help.
All right. I think you're going to have to help walk me through it step by step. But I think you'll need to turn over the screen to me here.
Okay. Let me see here. Make presenter. There you go.
All right. You see.
I see your 8x8. You'll want to switch that over. If you go under sharing, you can do the little drop down.
Yep, there we go.
Perfect. Awesome. I can see you now.
All right, great. All right, so I know that from what Jama told us, if we go to My Home, and we can see Report Center here from the Work Center column, or we can get it from typing in Report Center up here. So we're just going to go to Report Center here, and since I don't see your screen and can't see the step-by-step, Jama, if you'll just walk me through it once we get in here, I'd appreciate that.
Definitely.
All right.
Yep. So we're going to open up pay code detail. And it actually saved from the last time we did this, so that's perfect. So I want you to revert it to the report default by the views. Yep, perfect. So this is our standard way that the report was originally built, but I want to quickly make this my own. So Tim, if you want to go up to columns, we're going to clear everything out. You just hit clear all. Perfect. Now we're going to type in the search bar and choose the following columns. We're going to choose pay date. And we're also going to choose location. Then we're going to do hours worked. Awesome. So that is all we need in regards to our columns. It's a lot easier to type it in, as you could see, instead of scrolling down trying to find each column. So now we're going to group. So you have two different ways. It's all about preference. If you want to go to the toolbar or if you want to go to the column, either way, you can group that information. So we're going to group our pay date by month. Yep, perfect. Awesome. And then we are going to group our location. Okay, awesome. And now we are going to do an aggregate, and we'll see location in just a second. We are going to first do an aggregate on our total amount for hours worked. So if you go to hours worked column, we're going to select aggregates and do a total. And then now let's pull the summary only button over that's on the far right side of the screen. If you pull that over, you're going to then be able to see your locations. That's going to show a full summary of that information, that data. So if you can see here, we've got our pay date by month and year, and then we have our locations. So some of those pay date, month, and years are going to be duplicated because we have multiple locations. And then we have our total hours worked by those locations. All right, and then we're going to show how to export this report. The toolbar, top right. Then you have three different options. And you can also rename the file from this little pop-out window. Rename even the worksheet if you want, but otherwise you can just click export. You don't have to really do anything besides that. And that'll open up in your bottom left corner in the download bar. It'll always automatically default to your downloads folder. Awesome. All right, we have one other step to show, which is saving a different version of this report. So yep, go up to the Save Diskette icon in the toolbar, Save As View, and then just give it a name that makes the most sense, maybe pay date by location or total hours worked by location, however you want to name it. You can check Make This Your View, yep, and then hit Save. And then you will see in that little monitor drop down on the far right, if you do that drop down, you'll see your different views, and you can always go back to the report default if you don't like this view and need to go back to how it was. So yep. That is essentially how easy it is to kind of customize your own report, export it, save it into a different version. And we are always happy to do individualized training too, because it can be really easy to kind of, play around with it. But sometimes if you're trying to find something and it's just not working, or it's not doing what you want it to do, please always feel free to reach out and we can do individual custom training on the Report Center. You did a great job, Tim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm looking at the questions now. Do we get this? Yeah, we're going to have a video, the recording of this, and we're going to share that with you as well as the slides so that you can have these different steps and use that whenever you need it. Can you schedule reports to run automatically? That's a great question. This is going to be a feature that should be rolled out within the next quarter or two. There have been lots of people that have been requesting that feature. And so I know that the developers are working on it, just making sure it actually works appropriately. And then we will let you know once that is in fact rolled out in the software. But it should be coming soon to schedule them. Any other questions?
I do not see any more currently in the queue.
Okay. Are there any reports for PTO? That's a great question as well, Pete. Thank you for asking it. So you can utilize the pay code detailed report, and you can filter on that specific pay code of PTO or however you have that named. But as of right now, you would have to utilize the other reports area within re360. And actually, let me show you. I can share my screen so you know what I mean by that. Let me see if I can take back presenter. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if I go into re360, this report icon up here in the middle, this is going to have basically the same reports that you will have in the Report Center. But you will find that there are some reports here that are not in the Report Center. The beauty of the Report Center is that you have flexibility to move columns around, unlike what you have here. But you do have areas to filter. But if I'm looking at like PTO, and under the report suggestions, I've got eligible PTO report, PTO approval report. These are not in the Report Center, so you will still need to access that from re360 directly. Great question. I'm hoping that they will add these in the future, but otherwise I would suggest going into the Report Center, and anywhere where you have a pay code, I'm going to search pay code right here for my columns and check that, and then I can see that I have the pay code detail report and this workers' comp reporting, but those probably aren't that helpful. So Yeah, that's how you can get more flexibility with that specific pay code.